Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Today we have the TIDD board meeting first, and then we have our work session. Today is Monday, January 12th, 2026. It's approximately 1 p.m. I am Mayor Eric Enriquez. We will start with a moment of silence for the brave men and women of the United States Armed Forces as they protect our interests around the globe, as well as our courageous men and women of the Las Cruces Police and Fire Department. They keep our city safe 24/7. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So the first item is 2.1, approval of the minutes from August 11, 2025, the Tax Increment Development District Board meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
This is on the motion to approve the minutes from the August 11, 2025 TIDD board meeting. Board Member McClure?
Yes.
Board Member Matisse?
Yes.
Board Member Harris?
Yes.
Board Member Bencomo?
Yes.
Board Member Cran?
Yes.
Board Member Munoz?
Yes.
And Chair.
Yes. Next will be 3.1, the discussion items, financial and current project update by Chris Faber.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the TIDD board. I am Chris Faber, Community Development Director. And today I will be going over some TIDD projects, and then at the top, I thought I would do a quick overview of some of the TIDD background for the new members as well. So right here we have a map of the downtown TIDD district showing the boundaries and where the area of the TIDD district. So it basically extends from Picacho on the north end, sort of down behind the school building over there past El Paseo, and runs along Campos Street on the east, and then down to Alameda on the west side. That's the main district. So a quick overview of what the TIDD is. It was formed under the State of New Mexico's Tax Increment for Development Act, and it's really a funding mechanism for local investments in infrastructure operations and infrastructure maintenance. What happens is revenues that are generated, increases of GRT and property taxes go back into the TIDD, and it's reinvested within the boundaries of the TIDD. So when the TIDD was created, they set a baseline for what those property and GRT taxes are. And now 75 cents or 75% of every dollar that's collected over the baseline goes back into the TIDD for reinvestment into projects, where that remaining 25% goes back into just general property taxes and GRT. And if for some reason there are no revenues that are collected, it does not exceed the baseline, then there are no additional funds that go into the TIDD at that time. So showing FY26 revenues year to date starting in July. And on the chart here, you can see I've got FY25 and 26 up there. We are pretty steady, pretty consistent. We did see a pretty substantial change in TIDD revenues in about 2020. That sort of corresponds with some of the changes in GRT that the state made. And so we're consistently generating somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000 on a monthly basis. And just note that these numbers aren't the numbers that were generated during that month. Those were the numbers that are reported from the state to the city relative to that month. So, for example, December information is probably an extension of October and November. Doing an annual TIDD revenue for the last few fiscal years, you can see starting in 2022 for 4.1 million, and then 6.4, 6 million, and then right on this year we're right on track to sort of meet that $6 million a year in revenue. So been holding pretty consistent, pretty steady, pretty good revenues for the city to work with on a yearly basis. So the TIDD is comprised with three different funds. 2815 is the revenue and operation funds. Fund 4270 is for capital projects where the bulk of this money sits right now, and 4271 is specific to bond projects related to streets. So right now we have about $27 million in the TID. I will say that about 8 to 10 million of that is encumbered for current projects, which we will go into some of the major ones right now. So we have about roughly $17 million in the TID that is not encumbered, and that can be used for future projects that the board decides to allocate funding for. So we'll go through some of the larger projects that we have, and then just know that there's a series of smaller projects, whether it's small building maintenance or something on the plaza or things of that nature that kind of comprise some additional things. But by and large, the projects that we'll talk about today are the major ones that the TID is funding. So in all the little callecitas that we have along Main Street, we are going to be putting in some shade structures. If you've ever walked down there, you can see that there's those big kind of steel poles in all the callecitas. When those callecitas were put in, they didn't have all the funding to complete the shade portion of it. So some of the structures, the poles on one side are not there, and then the actual shade sails aren't there. So we'll be completing those on all the callecitas. That should probably start sometime after January, and hopefully this will be done within a year. Another major project within the TID is the Campo Street redesign. So the section of Campo Street right behind City Hall, going from Picacho on the north end all the way down to Loman on the south end, will be redesigned. Those designs are about at 90%. Construction will probably take about 14 months as soon as it does kick off. And the idea was to make it a more pedestrian friendly for both, obviously, pedestrians and people on bicycles, and to make it a little bit more connected to downtown. Right now, what we hear a lot from the community is that it sort of feels like a barrier between downtown and the historic neighborhood. The idea is to redesign this street so that there's more connectivity and it feels like it's all part of one area from a design standpoint. One of the big projects going on right now is the update of the downtown master plan. So we are in our third update at this point. There was one in 08 and then 16. And so what we wanted to do with this third one was, now that we're generating a lot of revenue from TID and a lot of those major projects that the TID was actually set up to complete, like the two-way conversion downtown and the plaza and some of those larger projects. Now that they've been done and we have some other new revenues coming in, what sort of things should we be looking at, over the life of the TID, which is probably somewhere around 2032? What are some of those major projects that we would like to tackle with the remaining funds? So phase 3 should give us some of those ideas on what we've done and where we can go, looking at things like parking lot redevelopment, mixed-use development, those types of things. So this will be real exciting. We kicked off with a charrette back in November. And we're expecting to see a draft of this plan sometime this month, and then we'll be coming back for a work session for you to read the plan and discuss it, and then come back with adoption of that plan at a point later on in the spring. The Amador Hotel is another one of the large projects that the TID has been funding over the last few years. We have been putting money every year to restoration of the exterior of the property. A couple of the walls are done, and they're expecting to see completion within the next couple of years. The idea is that once we get to a certain point, have it listed on the National Historic Registry. Their nomination was submitted, but it was rejected early on. They still need to see more work completed before they will actually approve that designation. The Brannigan Cultural Center, there's money coming out of the TID to do some exterior remodeling, renovations, stucco, repainting, things of that nature. And so you can see from this photo that there's some areas that really could use some repairs. And so they've got funds set aside to help work with quality of life on those. Some of that is reglazing and repairing windows, many of which are actually stained glass. And then the big project downtown that the TID is helping to support is the design of the Brannigan Library. So we put money from the TID into that design. The design is near complete. Developed documents are about 75%, and they expect to have about 100% by mid-February. And it's going to include, an atrium, a bookstore for the Friends of the Library, and expanded youth services when the library is all done. And for those of you that haven't seen a rendering, this is a rendering from Quality of Life of what the library would look like when it is all completed. So, I know I threw a lot of information at you. Happy to stand for questions on any of those projects or anything else related to the TID. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions? Councilor Coran, even though you're wearing the Franco Harris.
Thanks.
Go
I feel like the Amador Hotel needs an immaculate reception, but I'm curious if you can talk about a little bit about the National Registry conversation. I know that has been a big part of how we pay for the Amador refurbishing. I know I'm sort of putting you on the spot. I know this isn't your necessarily area, but I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about, you said maybe things on the exterior could drive it to get on the National Registry, but I'd love to hear more about what that looks like, what the investment would be to make it eligible, more eligible, potentially, than it is if it was rejected now. Because I know that leveraging funds related to that is something that we need to do before, if we can't complete it without significant external investment, I think. Is my understanding of where we are with the Amador Hotel, but I'm hoping maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Sure, Mr. Chair. Board Member Coran, I'll tell you what I know, and then Carol Bray from Quality of Life can sort of fill in any of the spots. So we have been funding the exterior renovations from the TID. It's my understanding that probably more work on the interior needs to be done to sort of reach that designation at the federal level. The funding on the interiors is another substantial project, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $12 million just for the inside. And so we've been continuously using those TID funds to get the exterior of it renovated. The idea is that if it does get federal designation, then it would open the door to a lot more different level of grant funding that could be used to complete the interior of that facility for sure. So that designation will be key in the future of any renovations. And Carol, if you have anything.
Thank you, Chris. Carol Bray, Director of Quality of Life Department. Mr. Chair and Board Member Coran, basically, I would just add that a couple of things. First of all, we are getting into phase 2 of the exterior renovations, which should complete the exterior, which will be great. We've applied for a $5 million grant, which if we get it from the state, would allow us to start on phase 1 of the interior, which would actually allow us to open the building to the public for the first time. So we're very hopeful that might happen. But all of this is moving us closer to the goal of getting on the National Registry. As you know, the issue there was some miscommunication, I think, with the State Historic Preservation Office. We thought we were ready. They decided we were not. And so that nomination did not move forward. But both the mayor and I wrote letters of support for that, and we'll continue to monitor that situation.
Thank you. So I'm hearing funding $5 million into the state. We'll find out soon about that, and $12 million would get us started on phase 1 of the interior-ish. Or the $12 million would complete phase 1 of the interior?
Yeah, $12 million would probably complete the interior, like all of the interior. So the $5 million would be for, and there's estimates between $8 to $12 million for the interior. So I would say that the $5 million will allow us to complete much of the first floor so that it can be accessed by the public, and then we would still have to do the second floor.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor McComo.
Thanks, Chris, for your presentation. I don't know if you're taking requests at this time, but since I've come to you directly with a concern raised by some folks who work alongside Main Street, I thought I'd bring it up publicly as well regarding the parking lot I'm so sorry, I don't know the number of the parking lot right here, behind the spa downtown that goes all the way to the end of that street. Do you know what I'm talking? You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Anyway, the parking lot that is behind all of those businesses needs work. I've been asked of this by folks who work in this area. There's no lines, it needs to be repaved, and so I just wanted to make sure that that is on the radar for the TID.
Mr. Chair, Board Member Ben Como, yes, those are parking lots 9 and 10 going from Griggs south down to Bowman. There has been discussion about resurfacing those. However, parking lot 9, which is the one closest to Griggs and Water, is a prime site for redevelopment. So if that's the direction we want to go, then obviously we would forego repaving that one and just focus on another parking lot downtown. But I think that's why we haven't moved forward with resurfacing on that one, is determining if that will be a site that we go after some improvements on and possibly do some mixed-use development on that particular lot.
What's the timeline for that? I just want to make sure we're being responsive landlords, I guess, if that's what we want to call it, to the folks that work there every day.
Sure, Mr. Chair, Councilor Bencomo. So what we were trying to do with phase 3 of the downtown plan was see where things kind of come from that point, and then the projects that were identified. I know redevelopment of parking lots is kind of a key component of that. Set those timelines based on the projects that the board wants to move forward with from there. So if we come to work session in the spring and you guys adopt that plan, and part of that plan is some renovation of those parking lots, then we could begin that right away to move forward with that. If the board decides that's not one of the lots they want to move forward with and go in a different direction, then we can look to resurface that parking lot and continue using it as a parking lot. So I think we'll know a lot more of that once we adopt that phase 3 of the master plan and get some direction on which way the board would like to move forward with redevelopment.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
All right, seeing no other questions. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Look for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
This is on the motion to adjourn the TID board meeting. Board Member McClure?
Yes.
Board Member Matisse?
Yes.
Board Member Harris?
Yes.
Board Member Bencomo?
Yes.
Board Member Coran?
Yes.
Board Member Munoz?
Yes.
And Chair.
Yes. Yes, we'll go ahead and take a 3-minute break.